Good afternoon everybody, bonsoir tout le monde. Je m'appelle Ndeye Diarra et je suis la fondatrice de #AfricaScores, une plateforme d'intelligence économique sur le sport en Afrique. Et aujourd'hui, nous allons parler de l'évolution du football féminin, the evolution of women's football. Merci à tous d'être présents et merci pour votre patience. Avec moi sur scène, nous avons Teresa, Calleb, qui représente FIFPRO Africa. Teresa aura l'occasion de nous décrire ce qu'est cette organisation. I'll speak English with you, Teresa. On a également Zineb Rechiche, qui est représentante de ZIA, une agence accréditée par la FIFA. Et enfin, nous avons coach Jorge Vilda, qui est donc le coach de l'équipe nationale marocaine de football. Enchanté, coach. Alors, je vais commencer. I'm going to start with you, Teresa, and I'll switch to English. J'espère que tout le monde a pris leur appareil de traduction. So, Teresa, can you describe with FIFPRO Africa what you guys do, and can you also give us a bird's eye view of African women's football?
Thank you so much, Ndeye. So, like Ndeye said, my name is Teresa Calleb. I am a former footballer. I used to play for the Kenyan national team. I captained the Kenyan national team as well. And I sit in the FIFPRO Africa board, as well as the CAF committee that organizes women football. So, speaking about women football, I feel like the growth has been immense. I'll start with the iBirds view. The growth has been immense because if you look at what women football was 10 years ago, for example, it's a different beast now. I think there's so much happening with the tournaments that are now coming. We are going into the 4th edition of the CAF Champions League, which was not there before. And this is more platforms, more visibility platforms for the women. So sometimes I feel like the growth is it's growing too quickly, and maybe it's a bubble that is about to burst if it's not managed well, because there are so many people who might try and take advantage of the situation. Success has many fathers, so it is something that needs to be looked at, and that's where the union comes in. So what we do at FIFPRO is we try and look at the rights of these players, both men and women, but obviously I have a bias for women. And what we do is just advocate for their rights and also be available for them when they need to litigate, because some of these clubs, there's so many African players who are going to Europe now or other continents or Saudi Arabia, and they need to sign contracts. Some of those contracts, they don't even read them. Some of them are given contracts in Arabic and they don't speak Arabic. So we deal with so many issues. And that is where the representation comes in, because we represent them in all fronts. So when they bring cases, we've had cases of also players just getting stuck in other countries because maybe there's a fake agent who took them there but they didn't go to play football. You get there and you're supposed to be a construction worker or you're supposed to be a housekeeper, and you are told that you're going to play football. So we deal with so many nuances around football, and that's where FIFPRO comes in to just make sure that we take care of their well-being, and we take care of also just ensuring that there's an enabling environment around where they play football.
Thank you, Teresa. I'm going to turn to you, Coach. So you've recently been appointed coach of the women's national team in Morocco, a team that has done tremendous progress, and that is all credits to the vision of His Majesty the King. May God assist him. And I wanted to have your view on where is this team sitting at right now? How are you getting ready for the Women's African Cup of Nations? And how is it going to be to have the team playing at home, hosting this great competition? And we're going to have the translation. Go ahead.
Salam. First of all, I apologize for my English, for being more fluent. I will need a translator.
Je suis désolé pour mon espagnol. Je suis pas très pour mon anglais. Je suis pas très fluent, mais je vais essayer quand même.
And I will try to go in a good rhythm to do a translation.
Et je vais commencer. Je vais essayer de petit à petit de le faire pour qu'il puisse justement que je puisse traduire pour Jorge.
Bien, en primer lugar me gustaría agradecer a la organización la invitación a este gran evento.
Il vous remercie pour l'invitation à ce super événement.
Y también pues el apoyo de la federación para que haya charlas de fútbol femenino y que todo el mundo pues nos pueda escuchar.
Et également à la fédération pour l'organisation de ce débat sur le football féminin également.
Sobre el trabajo que llevamos haciendo durante año y medio con las selecciones en la Fédération Real Marroquí.
Pour le travail qu'ils sont en train de faire récemment sur le marché du football et la fédération du Maroc.
Decir que es un proyecto muy ambicioso, un proyecto global de fútbol femenino en los que creo que están entre los mejores del mundo.
C'est un projet très ambitieux et global sur le football féminin et il est très content de ça.
La federación nos ha dotado de todo el contexto y todas las herramientas para poder desarrollar a los equipos nacionales.
Tous les éléments et le contexte qui sont aujourd'hui à jour pour justement produire cet univers sur le football féminin. Il est très content.
Pero también ayudar con nuestra visión a que se desarrolle la liga y poder ayudar a las jugadoras que están en periodo de formación.
Et également, il souhaite aider les joueurs justement dans cette période également de formation.
Creo que el crecimiento está siendo muy grande. También otro de los retos es que jueguen más jugadoras, incrementar el número de licencias.
Le football féminin, il est en train de se grandir petit à petit et il est très content par rapport à ses stats et à ce numéro.
Para al final, en esa pirámide, alimentar la base para en un futuro próximo pues tener selecciones y equipos de gran nivel.
Et également alimenter cette pyramide pour avoir dans un futur proche également des sélections sur l'univers et le football féminin en soi.
Ahora mismo, a nivel del primer equipo, tenemos una Copa de África por delante este verano.
Cet été prochain, ils organiseront la Coupe africaine sur le football féminin.
Nos estamos preparando, hemos jugado contra grandes rivales, el equipo está mejorando y esperamos hacer un gran torneo que además se celebra aquí en Marruecos, que es algo muy especial para todos.
Ils se sont entraînés beaucoup récemment et cet été justement ici au Maroc, ils vont faire cette coupe féminin, donc ils sont très contents et ils sont en train de s'entraîner beaucoup pour ce tournoi de cet été. Gracias, Jorge.
Gracias, coach. Je vais me tourner vers vous, Zineb. Je ne sais pas si vous voulez qu'on le fasse en anglais ou en français, as you want. Ok, on va le faire en français pour l'audience. Donc, vous êtes la première femme du monde arabe et première femme du Maroc à être accréditée agente de la FIFA. Parlez-nous de votre expérience en tant qu'agente et comment est-ce qu'aujourd'hui, votre expérience de joueuse vous permet de servir au mieux vos clients et vos clientes.
Oui, bien sûr. Déjà, merci pour l'invitation au World Football Summit. C'est un honneur d'être ici, dans ma ville, la ville où j'ai grandi et puis dans mon pays. Et je voudrais remercier la Fédération royale marocaine de football et vos sports pour cette invitation. Donc en fait, comme vous l'avez dit, mon expérience en tant que joueuse m'a permis en fait d'avoir une connaissance intrinsèque de ce qui est demandé du joueur. On va dire que je comprends la pression, les sacrifices, la discipline qui est nécessaire dans le monde du football. Et de ce fait, en fait, il y a tout un support qui est nécessaire pour que le joueur performe. Et en fait, c'est ce qu'on essaie vraiment d'apporter chez ZIA. J'ai aussi la chance d'avoir on va dire une double casquette en finance pendant que j'étais joueuse. Donc c'est cette aussi connaissance du monde des affaires qui m'a permis en fait d'avoir une vision un peu plus long terme par rapport à l'agence et ce que je voulais mettre en place pour les personnes que j'accompagne et que je guide. Donc en fait, l'idée est vraiment d'ajouter de la valeur aux joueurs en tant que joueur, mais aussi en tant que personne. On a une vision qui est assez long terme et proactive dans la gestion de la carrière, mais aussi la vision long terme en termes de post-carrière après le football. Donc on a mis en place pas mal de partnerships, que ce soit en termes éducatifs, mais aussi en termes de wealth management pour les joueurs qui sont un peu plus établis. Et l'idée, c'est vraiment d'apporter, on va dire, de la valeur qui est en dehors du terrain. Donc la passion est sur le terrain, mais je pense que l'accompagnement se fait beaucoup en dehors du terrain. Et essayer d'équiper ces athlètes-là du mieux possible et les préparer pour l'après-carrière. C'est aussi une manière de les protéger par rapport à, on va dire, tout au long de leur parcours, à différentes phases de leur carrière. Et ça sera en fait les futurs leaders de l'industrie de demain. Donc si on apporte, on va dire, cette valeur ajoutée-là, ça permettra d'avoir des personnes qui sont déjà prêtes à rentrer dans les prochains clubs, fédérations et autres. Et donc c'est vraiment l'emphase sur laquelle on met dans l'agence.
Très bien, merci Zineb. Je vais rester avec vous, mais je vais passer en anglais pour que Teresa et Jorge comprennent la question. Mais you mentioned that you were doing a lot to help players with building their after career. I'm curious to know and to have your opinion of the three of you. We're seeing African players developing much more market value, especially African female players. We have 2 players from Zambia who broke the record in the transfer market last season with the NWSL. So I'm curious to know what can be done so that we continue pushing the market value of African players. And I'm going to start with you, Zineb, as an agent. What do you think?
I think for me, look, I think we need just to focus a bit beyond talent, right? So talent is one thing, but the vision will be to really drive strategic pathways on how do you support athletes in terms of, kind of having the accessibility to the academies, the clubs, the agents that will have the pipelines, international pipelines, to provide them exposure, but also help them to develop. I think that's one. The second thing is, again, focusing off the pitch. Yeah. Financial awareness is very key. We're dealing with players that have, access to certain wealth, and therefore planning properly is needed, and that is also very key. The second thing is around education. It's very critical to bring that discipline to the player. In terms of career planning, because again, football is maybe half of your life. What about the next one? And then I think, today we have to think football slightly differently from, when I started playing, for example. There is a lot of things around how do you bring value using media, using storytelling, using culture. And this is part of, I would say, regular life of athletes that maybe were not existing before. So this is at, let's say, our level now from an infrastructure perspective, or more institutional, if I may say. So Africa has the talent, and this is, we know all that. But what can the institutions do for that? So we need to match that talent with the infrastructure, with the education and the strategy, right? And this is, I think, where Morocco has been an amazing example with the vision of King Mohammed VI, and the leadership of Mr. Fawzi Al-Qja to drive, Moroccan football at the center stage globally. So you really have to combine different aspects and go beyond, football itself.
Over to you, Teresa.
Thank you. I like everything Zineb is talking about when she speaks about education and the infrastructure, and also just the well-being of players, knowing that there's football is a short career, and they need to think about how they're transitioning from football, and that's where FIFPRO comes in. And now I want to talk about solutions in terms of what FIFPRO does, because like now in 10 days there will be the African schools happening in Ghana, and FIFPRO will be present there, partnering with CAF to try and drive education to these young people, just from financial literacy to how they can balance education with sports, because it's not just about the football. It's also about the education, because we need them to know how to read their contracts in future. We need them to know when an agent is taking advantage of them or not. So these are the things we are trying to drive through with the Fake Agents campaign, and just partnering with the Protect the Dream as well, that CAF is doing. You see, the more the merrier, because the message gets across. And also when she talks about these players having to also know that they have to drive value through social media. This is something that FIFPRO has been doing in partnership with CAF through the Social Media Protection Service, because in as much as they're out there on social media, we know that they're also being abused. We've had cases of Barbara Banda being abused on social media. We've had cases of Calleb, the boxer, even beyond football. So we're also trying to see that they're protected on social media. In as much as we want to push them to also drive value out of social media, we know that they're perpetrators, they're abusers online, and this can affect their mental health. And we're trying to just ensure that they're cushioned as they go about their business, because even if you look at the UN guiding principles, football is work. And we want them to believe that it's work. But if you look at women football, it's special in the fact that women have always had to keep second jobs. Zineb would know that, because for her to have prepared to transition into this agent we're seeing right here is because she was preparing for life after football. And that was because probably she could not live off the earnings of football. And it's still happening. And there's a report that FIFPRO also did with FIFA that they were looking at how women football, a big percentage they have to go to work. So football becomes secondary. But we don't want it to be secondary. We want it to be the main career. And you spoke about the records that are being broken now by players in the US. We have players also from Kenya going to the US. And now they're earning big money from it. And they know that now it's their core business. So how do we make sure that they stay there? You know, it's evolving. But how do we keep it up there and not flop at some point? It's by ensuring that their contracts are making sense, by ensuring that we have these collective bargaining agreements that are being driven by the players' union. But sometimes when you do this with federations, they think you're fighting them. But it's not fighting them. It's a complementary job we are doing to protect the players, and also just to make sure that the players are in their best state. Because if you look at now, these players that we are saying are going abroad, they will start having workload issues that you were asking me earlier, because of also the travel. Traveling in Africa is actually harder than maybe coming from Africa to Europe. And it's something that needs to be addressed, because we have had players staying in the airport for 8 hours and they need to play a match the next day for the national team because they're coming from maybe Turkey or Spain. These are things that need to be addressed as well, because they're the things that culminate into the injuries they have. But we need to protect them also so that they don't get these injuries we're talking about with the women, the ACL project that FIFPRO is doing. So I think a lot is being done. We just need to put it out there and also support the work that goes into ensuring that women play football in an enabling environment.
Thank you. Over to you, Coach.
Sí, estoy muy en la línea con lo que han dicho mis compañeras y comparto totalmente que en África hay un talento tremendo en las jugadoras de fútbol femenino.
Alors, Jorge, il est complètement en ligne avec ce qu'ils viennent de dire. Et il y a beaucoup et un énorme talent en Afrique. Donc, il est complètement d'accord avec tout ce qu'on vient de se raconter maintenant.
Vale, la pregunta iba más a la cúspide, a lo que ha sucedido en algunas ocasiones con transfer que han sido históricos por la cantidad de dinero que han pagado por las jugadoras. Y yo vuelvo para mí lo que puede ser más importante para conseguir eso, que es la base.
Et donc du coup, par rapport au transfert, c'est vraiment la chose la plus importante pour Jorge. Par rapport à la question justement d'avant, c'est vraiment la base de tout pour lui.
Al final las jugadoras, su día a día, su entrenamiento lo tienen los clubes. Me consta que se está haciendo un gran trabajo en los clubes. Aquí tenemos representantes de clubes de Marruecos, y al final el día a día las jugadoras lo viven en sus clubes. Tienen que estar rodeadas de un entorno adecuado y de la máxima cualificación profesional.
Aujourd'hui, les joueuses de football, elles jouent tous les jours, elles s'entraînent tous les jours avec leur club. Donc c'est vraiment cet entraînement quotidien dans les clubs qui va aider justement ce futur proche par rapport au football féminin. Donc le rapport entre les joueuses et les clubs de foot.
Crear buenas competiciones constantes, con estructura, desde las más jóvenes hasta las más mayores, para que haya una competición estable y continua en el tiempo.
Créer également des compétitions stables, concrètes, afin justement de pouvoir développer ce type de football.
Y luego esas jugadoras que más brillan, con una buena formación, van a las selecciones nacionales, que por mi experiencia en el pasado en España y con los 20 años en esta profesión, en el fútbol femenino, en todos los países el fútbol femenino se ha desarrollado a partir de las selecciones porque es lo más visto y lo más visible, mundiales, Copas de África, los grandes eventos, es lo que más se ve de fútbol femenino y es lo que llega a la gente.
Et donc les joueuses avec plus de talent, bah justement, ils vont aller dans l'équipe nationale de football et c'est donc dans l'équipe nationale de football que y a vraiment ce phénomène où, comment dire, bah, c'est là-bas, c'est l'équipe nationale de football que les joueuses brillent le plus. Donc c'est vraiment ce rapport entre les clubs et l'équipe nationale.
Y entonces, a partir de ahí, a esas jugadoras que destacan, darles visibilidad. Es muy importante la retransmisión de los partidos, una buena retransmisión de los grandes eventos para que pues bueno, lo que está sucediendo en África llegue a todo el mundo.
Et c'est très important, selon Jorge, justement, la visibilité. Donc, les matchs de foot, les télévisions, donc au niveau vraiment global, pour cette popularité. Donc, thank you.
Gracias, Jorge. Une autre question, I'm going to go back to English. Another question I have for you guys. We know that right now women's football is having, a moment, and it's not even a moment. We say it's a movement. But there is always the question of business and the question of sponsoring. Zineb, you've mentioned the fact that today's generation of players are not just about on the pitch, but they're also about beyond the pitch, social media, storytelling. So my question to you three is, how do we drive more sponsorship and commercial revenue into African women's football? How do we convince brands that African women players can be as much powerhouses as all the other players? I don't know, Zineb, if you want to start.
Yeah, so I think, you just have to go back to the macroeconomics aspect of it. So you're right. So if you just think from society, who's your biggest consumers? Women, right? So you just have to
focus. Yes, that's true.
Any brand needs to just go backwards and think about it. Like, how do you think from reaching a certain categorization of population? So there was a study that around 20% of engagements with millennials and Gen Z are coming through women's sports. Therefore, there's a lot of aspects on how do you think from an investment perspective, like what's your biggest ROI? How do you empower women's football? You just have to look at the numbers. If I'm a brand, I'm having last transfer window the biggest or the max transfer in terms of history, which was a transfer from San Diego to Chelsea, $1.1 million. You have around, looking at FC Barcelona Femení, Alexia and Aitana's jersey are within the top 5 sales, men and women combined. And last Women World Cup, 2 billion viewers. So if you just scale this and put it in perspective in terms of like, where do you need to put your eggs? I think the question speaks for itself.
Thank you. Over to you, Teresa.
Zineb, thank you for the numbers. I think she put it very well because what I can say is we should not try and package women's football the same way we package men's football because they're two different products. But most of the time we try and put them in the same basket. But if you look at women's football and men's football, this is like heaven and earth. I feel like even the boots should be different. Like the women need a different design of boots, for example. Maybe that's why the ACL injuries are coming, because they need something special just for them. So for me, the packaging needs to be done right, like the way she's putting it. Who are our consumers? Then we need to, if you look at women football matches, probably you'll find mostly women and children. It's a family day. You find that if it's a Sunday, then the whole family is there, from even the 9-month-old is there, which is not something you would find in a men's game being played at 10 p.m. at night, So we need to just package it around the people who are consuming the sport and look at a different kind of audience, look at even if it's the timing, what is the time for it? Do we need to play football, women football at 1, in the middle of the day or at 10 a.m. in the morning just to accommodate the family and whatever? So I think it's just the packaging that needs to be gotten right, and then we will be there.
Thank you. Coach, how do we bring in the sponsors?
Sí, yo creo que para el tema de la sponsorización deberíamos hacer 2 apartados, uno en lo que sería más colectivo en cuanto a equipos y otro más individual en lo que sería a la jugadora.
Il faudrait séparer du coup en termes de sponsorisation ce que c'est vraiment le thème collectif avec le jeu individuel des joueuses.
En cuanto a la sponsorización para equipos, creo que lo más importante es conseguir hacer un espectáculo atractivo.
Et selon Jorge, la chose la plus importante, c'est vraiment de construire un spectacle qui soit vraiment attractif.
Poder hacer que esos partidos los vea la gente, tanto en directo en el campo como los televisados por televisión.
C'est vraiment les matchs des gens, du coup, soit en direct, à la télé et bien évidemment au stade de foot en live.
Y por otro lado, a nivel individual, creo que el trabajo tanto de los clubes como la federación tiene que ir a elegir buenos referentes, buenas jugadoras referentes que puedan ser el espejo, que puedan ser la referencia para las jugadoras jóvenes.
Et de l'autre côté, que ce soit club, également les fédérations, c'est vraiment de rechercher ce type de marché, ce type de jeu pour justement grandir dans ce type de marché.
Y todo esto pues ayudado y trabajado por profesionales de las redes sociales, profesionales también de prensa que puedan vender este producto y hacerlo atractivo para todo el mundo.
Et également travailler avec les gens de la presse, avec social media manager, afin que justement ce type de sport soit de plus en plus attractif.
Thank you. Last question. Do you have a recent success stories around women's football you'd like to share with the room? I'm going to start with you, Zineb.
Okay. Well, I think the last one actually concerning women's football was actually, we were talking back in September last year with the technical team of Paris Saint-Germain. And, they had a watch list of several African players, and we were talking this and that and just arguing around. It's just a side conversation. And, we were just suggesting a couple of players that we thought could have a really good, I would say, potential, maybe on the longer run for them. And it just took them 4 months to see that potential. Actually, they recruited that player last transfer window. It was an amazing player from Tepe Mozambique, Merveille. Yes, it's actually not necessarily directly involved in everything, but it was great and heartwarming to just see how, sometimes, it's you can contribute to someone's dream and have that possibility to change people's life.
Congratulations. Teresa.
I feel like there have been so many successes, but the one that strikes me the most is the recent uptake of the maternity regulations that were developed by FIFPRO and now have been put forward by FIFA to the member associations. And now more and more you see that clubs are starting to embrace this. And they're also reaching out. They want to know how they can take care of these players, because we know women football, it's women. They need to also start a family at some point. Yep. And they need to have the liberty to do that without football being an obstacle. Because like we said before, it's work. And they need maternity leave like any other employee. So the fact that these maternity regulations are now being taken serious more and more, especially after the case at Lyon that we all know about, it's I think it's a sight to behold, because now they're thinking that they can plan their career and they can take a break and get babies and come back even better, because the ones that I've seen bouncing back have done it bigger and better. It's not an obstacle. This is the mindset that needs to be changed, that these people taking a break to get their families is not interfering in any way with their careers, as long as the protocols and everything that has been put in the maternity regulations, there's a whole the whole step of how to return to play and who is in your entourage that is supposed to support you through this. This is something that I think is going to change a lot going forward. And also the fact that going back to just self-sponsorships, where now players are also getting their brand ambassadors of products, and they now know their rights more, and it's not that if you're playing in a team or in a national team, then you're just bound by the sponsors of the team. More women are now having their own brand sponsorships. So this is something that also needs to be done more, because now they're taking advantage of also social media, like we said before. It can make or break you, you know, depending on how you use it. So I think there are so many successes. And even just when she was talking about the transfer from TP Mazembe, just from the Champions League last year, the CAF Champions League, there was also Mata from TP Mazembe signing for KC Currents. So yeah, so many successes.
So many successes. Coach, what about you? Besides the Morocco, inshallah, winning WAFCON this year, what other successes?
Yes, I like the pressure. You can give me the pressure.
No pressure, no pressure, Coach.
No, but before end, I like to say thank for being present here, the direction of women's football, some part of the staff of men's national team, women's national team, the director of the league teams. Thank you for being here. Thank you for my translator. Y en cuanto a la pregunta, yo me puedo focalizar en lo que está sucediendo en Marruecos, que es lo que conozco más.
Je peux me focaliser par rapport à la question sur le football ici au Maroc.
Creo que el primer reto, y se está consiguiendo con creces, es poder organizar grandes eventos, y aquí pues vamos a tener el Mundial 2030, vamos a tener 5 mundiales sub-17 femenino, y eso yo creo que es una muestra de la apuesta de la Fédération Marroquí de Football.
Le premier objectif, c'est justement la Coupe du Monde, le football marocain, et ça c'est vraiment quelque chose de très important, et je voudrais remercier également la fédération pour tout ça.
Y luego comentabas de la Copa África. Queremos conseguir algo grande para la selección, para el país. También estamos mirando en el futuro, en una siguiente campeonato del mundo que va a haber en Brasil. Queremos conseguir la clasificación, queremos mejorar los resultados pasados y queremos seguir creciendo en todos los equipos.
Il souhaite également s'agrandir, pouvoir justement devenir de plus en plus grand ici au Maroc, mais également justement la prochaine Coupe du Monde au Brésil. Donc c'est vraiment quelque chose de très important pour lui.
Thank you to all three. I have a success story. Je vais passer en français pour l'audience, mais je suis obligée de saluer mes amis du Sporting Club Casablanca. Donc, pour ceux qui ne connaissent pas ce club, c'est un club fabuleux qui a été lancé par Moad et Amine, qui sont ici présents. Et c'est un club 100% féminin qui a réussi en très peu de temps à prendre de succès les plus grands clubs africains de football. Et donc, c'est un succès du Maroc qui, je pense, mérite d'être salué. Et je vous invite, si vous êtes à Casablanca, à aller regarder un match. Je crois qu'il y a un match lundi soir, si je ne me trompe pas. Donc, voilà, c'est mon histoire, ma success story de football africain féminin qu'il fallait que je salue. Merci à tous, merci à tous les trois. It's been a pleasure of moderating this panel today. And thank you so much for following the World Football Summit. Thank you.
Thank you.